Alex, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
What's up?
Dude, I'm looking forward to this. It's been, we were chatting before we press record. We connected first like 4 years ago, and it's just been insane to see how rapidly you guys have grown. It's been really cool to watch. I know a bunch of people that have worked with you guys, and a bunch of my like friends and mentors are I believe are pretty good friends with you as well. So it's been cool to kind of watch you guys crush it. But for people that maybe don't know who you are, what are you doing? And give us the spark notes. Who you are, what are you doing, and what are you up to?
My name's Alex Hormozi. My wife and I own Acquisitioncom, which is a portfolio of companies, which this year should close out about $85 million a year in revenue. And I have nothing to sell you. We specialize in e-learning, digital learning type companies that are niche based. So, and those are companies that we founded a handful of them ourselves. And then now we took, the profits from those and have started buying companies that are doing between 3 and 30-ish million, and then scaling them up. And that's pretty much what we're doing now.
Very cool. Dude, I love that. I love that tagline of like, we have nothing to sell you. By the way, your new book is awesome. I think I finished that in like a day. And it was cool to really go through that and look at my offer from a perspective of like, what can we do to make it even more of a no-brainer? But talk to me how you got to that point. So obviously you mentioned you start up a bunch of different companies. You started in brick and mortar gyms, correct?
Yeah. So I'll give you the little bit, the longer than 15-second backstory. So I had a gym, scaled my gym locations to 6. I sold those. And then I started doing gym turnarounds. So I'd fly out to gyms and basically implement our whole system inside of the gym. When we talk about unscalable done for you, that is when I talk about like doing the trench work, that's the stuff that people aren't willing to do. So we did that for 2 years. We did 32 or 33 turnarounds in that period of time. Then at a certain point, we had 8 guys flying out every month doing gym turnarounds. We're like, all right, we got to find a better model, because guys were like, my wife's going to divorce me. I can't go on the road all the time. So I was like, all right, we got to do something different. And so, and then we pivoted to the licensing model, and that's when things really got, pretty nuts. So it was March of 17. And that year we ended up doing 6.8 million, I think, with like 3 million in profit. And the next year we did 28 million with 17 million in profit. So it really just took off. And that was gym launch. The next year, 2018, we started Prestige Labs, which is our supplement company. That one, went from 0 to 1.5 million a month in like 3 months, because we were selling through this existing distribution base. And then we started Allen, which is a software company that helps brick and mortar businesses work leads, because we noticed that was just like a huge issue for most of them. They could get the leads, but they wouldn't work them. And started that company. That went from 0 to 1.7 million a month in 6 months. And then from there, Layla and I had a lot of capital, on our own, that we were like, we know these businesses really well. How can we decrease our downside risk by going into things that we know? And so, we started Acquisitioncom in 2020. And right now we've got 3, about to be 4 portfolio companies besides ours, that we're scaling up. And so the smallest company there is doing 8 million. I think the second smallest is pacing like 11 million, and the third one's pacing like 30 something.
Got it. Okay. Super interesting. So,
those are different niches. So one of them is a certification business. One of them is a photography chain, and the other one is a publishing business. So they're very varied.
Got it. And is that common thread or the common denominator that they're like, are they education?
Yes, the photography was the only one that's an exception. It's just because I love the entrepreneur. And so they actually came to me as a digital business, but because of the way their model worked, it had such little capital requirements to open. So basically, they had a way of taking, photographers and helping them add like on average, like 500,000 a year to their business, which was insane. Right. And so like with Gym Launch, we had on average 240,000 a year. But there's some issues with gyms that force us into a licensing model. Gyms are expensive to start. There's a lot more service components, et cetera. Whereas, photography, there's fewer of those things. And so because of the way the model worked, I suggested when they came on board that we turn the model on its head and just own all the locations. And so that's what we do. So we open up a new location every month. It's actually every 21 days we open a new location. Each location does like one point something, 1, 2, 1, 4. And so, that's been a great business. And I think that one's going to be a monster in like 3 or 4 years.
Very cool. So what's interesting to me about those first couple of companies, so you built your base around your primary business. And then it sounds like you just saw other problems that your current clientele needed and just solved that with new companies and fed to the same customer base. Is that kind of like how you approached it?
The first two, so Gym Launch and Prestige, yes, they're like sister companies. Alan originally was supposed to do that. And then it turned out we realized that our customer base was not the avatar for it. So it actually was agencies. So we had to discover that. So Alan has almost, I think 6% of the business is gyms. So it's not, or Gym Launch rather. So it's not really, that one is not shared in terms of the audience.
Got it. When you were building Gym Launch and you had to move, you had to make that big transition after year 2. Was that kind of like not starting from scratch, but you had to completely revamp the model, right? Like what did the, I don't know if barrier to entry is the right word or just like risk tolerance look like? Like how did you navigate that decision?
That decision was really, and the switch was fast. The issue, I mean, there's so many threads of stories I could tell in here, but basically we were doing the gym turnarounds. The problem was the gyms that we were working with were inherently low performing gyms, which is why they needed help. And so we would do our promise, which was we'd fill your gym in 30 days, which is a pretty crazy, offer, and we do it for free. The catch for us is that we get all the money that we collect, which is, I feel like, a pretty fair deal. Free customers, we collect for cash, you get the recurring on the back end. Mm-hmm. And so we would pull about $100,000 out of every gym in like 20 days. And so the average gym owner, for context, makes like $30,000 a year. So they would see some dude from the internet flying and take 3 times their yearly salary out of their gym in 20 days and be like, fuck this guy. And so we started having some level of resentment there because they were like, fill my gym. But if somebody has 70 clients and then 21 days later, they have 270 clients, they don't know which way is up. You know what I mean? They don't have the processes, they don't have the systems, they don't have the team to run that size business. And that was what we realized. And so it was a series of unfortunate events, but basically in a matter of a week, we had two of the gyms tell all their clients to refund what they had sold, what we had sold them, because we were processing on that, and then re-sign up with them, which is at this massive hit of refund. The same, figure out a way to make a ton of money really quickly, and it has to be all profit. And so I had a handful of gyms that were going to launch the next month. And Layla, my wife, had an online coaching business. And I thought, let's just sell, weight loss online direct to consumer and not even do the gym thing anymore. We're just really good at selling weight loss. And so we started doing about $1,000 a day within 14 days doing that. And I was like, okay, this could work. We'll take the 8 sales guys. They can go back home. They can just sell over the phone. We'll do $8,000 a day. Like, we can do this and we'll be able to make enough money. And so I told the 8 gyms that were supposed to launch the next month, I said, hey, we're not going to do the flying out thing ananymore. Sorry, we're changing, how we're doing our business. And honestly, all of them were like, dude, we really need this. And so I stumbled into it. And I was like, well, I'm not going to help. I'm not going to fly out there if you can't, sell. And they're like, no, it's fine. Can you just show us how to do it? And I was like, fine. So I picked a number that was really high because I didn't want to do it. And so that I tricked, I ended up stumbling into really high ticket sales because I just didn't want to do it, which to me at the time, high ticket was $6,000 was the most expensive thing I could imagine. And so the first guy said yes. And I was like, holy cow. The next guy, same conversation. It was like $8,000. And he was like, okay. Next guy, same conversation. How much? I was like $10,000. And so I just kept going and we made like $60,000 in a day. And I was like, holy cow. I think we were just doing this model wrong. And so then I called up 30 plus gyms that we had launched earlier and was like, hey, remember that thing I did? You want me to show you how I did it? And they were like, yeah. And so we ended up doing like $350,000 in like licensing sales in like a month. and
Wow.
it was all profit. And so I was like, holy cow. And so for 48 hours, I pretty much didn't sleep, and then created the missing links, because we already had the trainings for like the sales, because I had to train the sales teams. We already had training on the fulfillment, because I had to leave that with the gym owners. I already had training on, the nutrition. Like we already had training for 80% of it that was already built out, and it was built to work rather. And I think this is one of the things that people miss is like, my sales training had to work, because I trained my sales team, and I would fly them out. And my fixed cost of flying a guy was like 20 grand. So they had to sell for us to make money. So, I feel like people make products because they feel like they should add stuff rather than like how quickly help someone achieve the result. So all the product was internal trainings that I just made public, basically. And then the only thing that I had to actually make the pieces of, which is like, here's the ad, here's how you connect to the funnel, here's how the scheduling works. And then all those gyms, the average gym that launched, like the next of all those gyms that we sold, the average made $30,000 in the first 30 days. So they weren't as good as we were, but they were pretty good. And so imagine if you had a product that you sold for 10 grand that made people 30 grand in 30 days on average, which means half of them did better than that. And then at that point, it was just insanity. There's no other way to say it. Like, what I mean? Like, that's the thing that I think a lot of people in the internet space miss, is because they see us in the funnel hacking stuff, and they're like, it must be the funnel, it must be the phone team. And like, sure, we have that stuff, and we had this fundamentals, because I was already running an 8-man sales team. Like, I know how to scale sales teams. But the reason that it really took off was that the product worked to a very high degree. The price to value discrepancy was enormous. So yes, we were high ticket, but we were low ticket compared to how much we were making people. And so because of that, word of mouth was nuts. And honestly, the sales team was order takers. They just like got on the phone. They're like, yeah, 2 of my friends did the thing. They all made 30 grand their first month. Like, I'm in, here's my credit card.
Yeah.
So when you acquire customers like that, and you're selling a $16,000 thing, and then on the back end, we were selling a $40,000 thing, it adds up pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And that was why it was so profitable. And that was why, it grew so quickly.
Yeah. Talk to me about the profitability. Like, the margins that you were sharing at the beginning of this were pretty, like 17 million in profit on a $28 million year. Like, was that purely, not purely, but was that primarily as a result of doing like Done With You and creating super scalable models that you are now selling?
Yeah. Well, the only things that you can build a fortune with, for the most part, not only, I don't want to sound like, but in general, like the easiest way to build fortunes is through media or code, right? Because it's zero cost of replication. So Joe Rogan can sell his podcast because it costs the same amount to give it to one person as to a zillion people, right? Mm-hmm. Software, it costs the same amount to give to one person as it goes to give to a zillion people. Licensing, right? It's just media that's being licensed. So if it's code or media, then those are the things that, where fortunes are going to be built. And so we switched from a done for you model, which was scaling bodies, right, to a licensing model, which is scaling media, which is very easy.
Mm-hmm. Then I guess your only cost is obviously whatever you need on the fulfillment side.
But support is far more leverageable.
Yeah, 100%. I had a question and I completely lost my train of thought, but the paradigm shift around high ticket's really interesting to me. I love the idea of like, I just threw a really big number because I didn't really want to do it, but they just kept saying yes. So we figured out how to do it. What did that paradigm shift look like? Was it just that light bulb moment? Like, wow, they actually want this, and let me just keep going until they say no.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, that's a rule of thumb for us in general, is like, if our close rate is like, it depends on how you're selling a product and whatnot. But if our close rate's above like 50-60%, then I know that we've got a ton of room. Right. And so usually, for me, a sales team should be closed. It depends. Again, there's a lot of variables here, but, if we're closing 30% ish of qualified calls that are coming in, that's usually around where I know the pricing. And this is, again, because the sales team's trained, because they're well managed, like you have to have stuff in place, but by and large, 35% is usually the benchmark we use. If we're above that, we know that there's a ton of room for it.
Yeah.
And we just do the math. A lot of times you can just double, like if I double the price, right, and I drop from 50% to 35%, I make still way more money.
Yeah. The one part of your new book, $100 million offers. And by the way, guys, if you haven't read it, we'll link it below. Like, go get it. It's awesome. and it's a quick read and super implementable, which I really like. But one thing that you shared that was really interesting to me was, as you were talking about like a part of high ticket that I think is like pretty misunderstood, and you kind of just alluded to it right there. I think in the book you talk around this idea that like you essentially should sell something for as high of a price tag as you possibly can, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about the mindset around that. And I think what a lot of people will attach to that is like the ethics of selling high ticket for something like that.
Yeah. So the ethics of selling high ticket, it can absolutely, I mean, I don't think there's like, if you're lying, that is unethical. The problem is people have the equation reversed. They're like, oh, I read a book on high ticket, I should take it. What you should do is create high value. And then as a consequence, charge a high ticket amount that is far less than the value that is provided. And so like what I said earlier, we charge $16,000 for something that added on average $240,000 a year. I will bet that the vast majority of people who sell high ticket can't make that claim.
Yeah.
And so they probably shouldn't be ticket. They should be figuring out why their shit sucks, fixing that, and then selling high ticket. And that's why everyone gets the sequence wrong. So like any marketer can quote trick enough people into becoming a millionaire, right? If you just promote enough times, you can become a millionaire, but you're not going to create a fortune, and you're also going to hate your life because everyone's going to hate you. And so, and the thing is at the end of the day, like only you are going to know how good your product is. The issue is that most people deceive themselves, and that's kind of the qualm. Every other quote, guru or internet marketer is full of it, but not me, right? It's just silly. It's just dumb, right? Like the reason Gym Launch made so much money is because I had 6 gyms. I didn't start Gym Launch after I had 1 gym. I didn't start after I had 2 gyms. I honestly didn't even start doing it until people started reaching out to me asking for help. I had no idea that what I was doing was special or different. I had planned on getting to 10 locations. And then I had a mentor who's like, you should probably deal with all these people who are trying to ask you for help. And I was like, I don't really care. I don't want to tell them what I'm doing. And he was like, you should probably consider doing this. This is a better model. And so anyways, I started and then did 2 years of fucking turnarounds, right? Most guys are like, why am I not? I literally had a question the other day. So I'm a little pissy right now. I had a question the other day about this. Guy says, how can you guarantee that I'm going to get to $1 million a month in 6 months? And I was like, I can guarantee you're not going to get there because that's the question you asked. It's just a dumb question. Stupid question. It has nothing to do with the value we're providing in the marketplace. Right. And so like I had been in business for myself for 5 years with employees and leases and everything before I made my first like real $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Guys are like 12 months in the game and they're like, I'm not a millionaire yet. I'm like, no shit, you're not good.
Yeah.
If you were good, think about this. If we have people who've been in the game for 20 years, do you think that they would on average be better than the people who've been in for 1 year? Of course, right? And if somebody who's in for 1 year can automatically make $1 million in their first year, then everyone would be doing it. But they are not. And it is because they're not good. That's it. Like that's it. Right? Like the book that you referenced, right? Like that book right now sells 800 copies a day. 0 funnels, 0 ads, 100% word of mouth. Product's good, people will buy it and they will tell their friends. But most people's products suck. And so what's ironic is that book is taking off in the internet marketing space and it's 100% about product. It's nothing marketing.
Yeah.
But no one says that. Because no one knows. No one even talks about product.
Mm-hmm.
And the gift for me was that when I got into Allen, which is our software company, the software world only talks about product.
Yeah.
Marketing is like a thing you do once you have the product that's right. Or you do enough marketing to get enough customers in to fix the product.
Mm-hmm.
Most people who are in this world, in the small world, right, of small business, they think that learning how to promote is how you get wealthy. It is not how you get wealthy. It is how you learn how to create a product that is exceptional so that then the product does the marketing for you. But no one really gets there. Most people don't get there because they never even learned that lesson. They just keep thinking they need a new hook.
Yeah.
And if you're in a big enough marketplace, you can do it. If you're selling weight loss online, you don't have to have a good product. I mean, you don't. Like you're a media company at that point. You know what I mean? You're just buying media. If you're selling, make money online, mass market, You don't have to have a good product. Now, if you did, you'd have way higher margins because you'd have way more repeat customers, way more Ascensions.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys that I know who are in this space who make 20, 30 million bucks a year top line, I don't think their products are exceptional. And I say that with love, you know what I mean? But as a consequence of that, they also make very little margin because they spend so much in media because they don't get anything from their existing customers because no one wants to buy from them again because they feel gypped on the first purchase.
Yeah.
Now, there is obviously the other side of this is like the personal accountability side. So like for us as business owners, it's like our responsibility is to always take full responsibility for the outcome of all of our customers, right? If someone fails and we say it's their fault, it's not useful for us because we can't get better. So there's no point in doing it, right? On the flip side, if you're a student, there's no point in blaming a business because you can always learn from something. Doesn't matter how shitty a teacher is, there's always lessons to be learned. Even if it's what not to do, there's always lessons to be learned. Only a shitty student doesn't learn anything.
Mm-hmm. So that last part's an interesting point. Like how have you guys balanced that? Because as the business owner, you take responsibility for the results or lack thereof, but there is a dance, right? Like, and the clients need to take responsibility for executing on your product or service. Mm-hmm. So how have you either baked that into your guarantees within your offers, or like how have you kind of navigated that part of the offer creation or product building?
I think those are separate questions. So first question with regards to the guarantee, we always tie guarantees if we have conditions around the things that drive the outcome. So it's like, you have to send these emails to make this money. You have to make these sales. Like it just, you know what I mean? Like if you do that, then we'll guarantee the outcome. If you don't send the messages, we can't make, like there's nothing we can do. You don't run your ads, there's nothing we can do, right? So we want to tie the conditions to things that we already know are activation points or high likelihood indicators, leading indicators of the outcome that we're trying to ultimately achieve, right? So that's that part. In terms of if you have any type of business that has a done with you component where a client has to do something in order to see success, which is the foundation of education, right? If you go to school, and this is what I find is kind of interesting about this, is that like humans are on a bell curve. There will be people that win no matter what product they buy because they are winners. There are people who will lose no matter what product they buy because they are losers. And then the question is, what do we do with the people in the middle? And so the objective of the business is to simply move the bell curve in the positive direction so that a higher percentage of the people or the median result is higher, which is why to this date, I have never seen anyone in our space ever talk about average results. You know why? A, they either don't track them, B, it's because they suck, or C, they don't track them because they suck. And they know they suck. So for us, what like key performance indicators for the customer success team is all about what is the average client making? And that we know that if we succeed at that, we will not have problems making money.
Yeah.
Because they'll continue to stay, they'll ask what else they can buy, and you'll have a really fruitful relationship. But in terms of like where we take accountability, we take full responsibility for the results in terms of if people are struggling here, we will continue to provide more things to help them, right?
Yeah.
But there's also, and that's a question of intention, right? And that's why you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say like, are we really doing our best possible job to get our clients to be successful? And only you will know that answer. The problem is that most people don't even know what good looks like. You have to have a perspective from which to make a judgment. And most people will see themselves as the hero.
Mm-hmm.
And so they lack self-awareness.
Yeah.
It's like if you turn off your marketing today, if none of your customers continue to buy, do you feel like your product is good? And if you do say yes to that question, if you turn off your marketing and then you never got new customers, then do you feel like you have evidence to support that claim?
That's a hell of a mirror to look at. Right.
I mean,
those are really good questions. Yeah. Really good questions. A couple things I'm really curious about. So obviously you guys are crushing it now. You mentioned Ascension, you mentioned a couple different words for people that might not be familiar with that. You mentioned you have like a 40K on the back end, 16K on the front end, or at least those were the numbers at that point in the story. Is all of your marketing going to your front end product, and then do the people graduate through it? Is that kind of your Ascension model?
Yeah. And for us, the KPI for that team is what percentage of customers ascend.
Yeah.
If customers aren't ascending, it means they're not getting, like, the limit of the business, like the last thing you sell is priced at the quality of the first thing someone buys.
Say that one more time.
You don't get paid. I'll say this differently. You don't get paid for the value you provide on the first sale. The value you provide on the first sale is to gain the trust of the customer. You make a sale to get a customer. You don't make a customer to get a sale, right? So you make the sale to get the customer to earn their trust, to provide value far in excess of what you charged, so that you'll have this something called customer surplus, which is the difference between what they paid and what they got. If what they paid and what they got are the same, there's no surplus. There's no goodwill. It's a transaction. The further you can spread that gap, the more goodwill there is, the more likelihood they will take the next purchase. At that point, and the ascension ladder, in theory, could go on forever. The problem within the gym space is it's very difficult for people, to get multiple locations and scale up and all that kind of stuff. And that's mostly because small business owners in general are terrible operators. Mm-hmm. And so they're very, it's very hard for them to manage multiple locations. And so there is a certain cap. I don't want to say there's a reasonable cap for the vast majority of people, in order business of any kind, which they're going to be limited by their radius.
Yeah. Got it.
Now in an internet business, in theory, you should be, let's walk another. So I was teaching how to make money online, right? Biggest generic offer of all time. So I teach how to make money online. And let's say I charge $10,000 and I get 50% of people to make $10,000 a month in 90 days. What do you think the likelihood that they're going to buy the $30,000 thing on the next thing of the 50% they get it? Very high, right? You pay 10 grand and now you make $120,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Now, of the 30,000 people, if I get, half of those people to 500,000 a year, what percentage of those people will take my $100,000 thing? A very high percentage of them. And so that's the thing, right? Is that most people, like, your ladder, quote, will end where you stop being able to provide value in excess of your price.
Got it. And every time you do that, you're essentially buying more and more trust, which will increase conversions up the ladder. Yeah.
That's the idea.
The book went viral because
the reason the book went viral is because it's 99 cents. So the price to value discrepancy. I've been told that there's a lot of $10,000 courses that don't include the amount of stuff that is in that book, right?
Yeah.
And so my customer surplus is high. As a result of that, they tell their friends. And if I had something to sell, I'm sure a lot of people would buy it. I made the book for me, just for transparency. Like I write these books to crystallize my own thoughts because I don't like repeating myself.
Yeah.
And so with my team, they're like, how do we create the offer? I'm like, here's the book, just read this, and then if everyone else benefits from it, awesome.
Got it. That was going to be my next question because I mentioned this at the beginning. I think the line that you opened up with is like not having anything to sell. Like that's really interesting. And yeah. I think it's awesome. Obviously you've had to sell a lot to get to the point where you don't have to sell. What's your vision now with the company?
It's building the portfolio up. So, I mean, the thesis for me for Acquisition.com is I feel like I was failed by formal education. And I think many other people share that feeling. We went to college, got debt, or you didn't get debt, whatever. You wasted 4 years of your life not earning income, not earning any valuable skills. You can get the same income 4 years later as you could right out of high school. What is the value at? It's zero, which ironically for some people, no one thinks that's a scam, but whatever. Anyways,
yeah.
Right? No one thinks Spanish is a scam. Take that for 6 years, you can't speak Spanish, right? You paid for college for that entire period of time. Anyway, whatever. Beyond the point. So for me, I feel like you can probably hear my viewpoint on this, but I think that formal education failed an entire generation. And so the reason that the e-learning space has boomed is because the demand for getting skills to feed ourselves, or I guess humans, is high. People want to provide value. And so that is why so many alternative education, systems or money-making systems exist, because people want to make money. You know what I mean? People want to have jobs or have a way of providing value to society. Most people don't want to do nothing. They think that, but they don't actually want to do nothing, right? They want freedom to do the things they want to do, right? Mm-hmm. And so the thesis for me is I'm looking at education companies because right now, so this is a quote from Naval Ravikant, but technology consolidates production and technology democratizes consumption and it consolidates production, which means if you're the best in the world, you get to do it for everyone. And so for me, I'm looking for businesses that are niche in specific verticals that are e-learning based, right? They're vocational. They teach salon owners how to run salons. They teach plumbers how to run plumbing business. They teach HVAC business. They teach, mechanics. They teach, what I mean? Like different ways of generating money for real in the real world that's niched down to stuff that's actually useful rather than Aztec literature, right? Mm-hmm. And so those are the types of businesses, are, I say 3 to 10 million, but like I said, the smallest company we have is 8 million. So, realistically it's skewed higher than that. And we want to participate with those companies. So Acquisition.com, all the trainings are free. All the books are free, or 99 cents, whatever. So that people can get the stuff, use the stuff. And, if they cross 5 million or 10 million, they can give us a call and we'll see if we can, invest in the company and participate in the growth and help them go there faster and make sure, because we've done it before. And if they don't do it, use the stuff and make money, awesome. Like most entrepreneurs start the game because they want to make an impact. And so, businesses are being helped for 99 cents and I sleep fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I've invested a lot in myself and my business over the last couple of years. Many of those programs worked out great. Many of them didn't, but we took lessons. And for 99 cents, like anyone that doesn't get that book is missing out, to say the least. Like there's no way to put that into words, but I don't think that your comment earlier about 10K courses not having the same kind of deliverables, like I don't think that's far off the mark. And I think that's a fair comment. It's sad to say that, but like, I think it's true. So again, guys, get the book. It comes
with a free course for anyone who's listening. It comes with a free course. You can get it at Acquisition.com. You don't opt in. It's just there. You can consume it. It has downloads, checklists, everything you need.
Yeah. It's, I literally sent my team copies so that they can all kind of go through it and go step by step for the parts of the product that they own. But, all right, two quick things, kind of like aside from business, maybe they're business related. Some of them are high performance related, but two things that I'm really curious about. So obviously your business is started in the gym. I'm sure that that's a big passion point for you. Like clearly you stay in phenomenal shape, like while running 8 figures in your portfolio. What does that part of your life look like? Like, is that a non-negotiable? How do you do that? Because I think that's the easiest crutch that people cling to. Like, I'm working so much, I can't go to the gym, but you figured it out. So what does that part of your life look like?
I'm far less romantic than I think people expect my answer to be. Like I've been training for 17, 18 years now. So like Jack before the business. So it's not very difficult for me to maintain Jacks. Like, yeah, as like I can train twice a week for 30 minutes if I just want to maintain the muscle mass that I have. I also have the knowledge base to know how to do it, which most people don't. Most people make a lot of the stuff harder than it really is. And so it's just, they put all their effort in things that don't matter. You know what I mean? They're obsessing about the wrong stuff. And I think that goes with business as much as it does in health. I'll probably end up writing $100 million body at some point. I'm purposely trying to distance myself from the fitness space because right now the majority of our portfolio is not fitness related at all. Mm-hmm. And so, I think I was the gym guy for a long time, which is why we're moving away from that, which is why I don't talk about fitness. But I don't even think fitness matters as much as people think it does. Like if I wanted to really change someone's life, I would get them to walk for 30 minutes a day, take a baby aspirin, and you just do those two things. I probably will have impacted someone's life far more than getting a 6-pack. Yeah. Because for me, it's like if you can't do it forever, there's no point in doing it. And so most people can't or don't want to do. Like no one's going to. And I say this like I'm just being real here. Like you're not going to quote look like me or another insert whatever body that you want. That's probably a guy who does it all the time or knows a lot about what they're doing because they like it. If you don't like it, you're not going to be at the same level as people who like it. It's like somebody who's trying to start a business who doesn't really like business. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, you're not going to be better than the guys who eat, sleep this stuff. Why would you expect to be? Now you can be better than average. You can definitely be better than you would be normally, but you're not going to be top 1%. That's because you don't like it, and that's okay. People just give people have these continuous guilt trips they give themselves about why XYZ. But in terms of make money and be in shape, sure. Look at all the people out there who are in shape and make money. Of course, you don't like everybody 3 or 4 hours a week you can put into exercising, and food takes the same amount of time to eat healthy as it does to eat unhealthy. So that's silly, right? And the food's most of the game anyways.
It really is. I'm on day, like, I think today's day 50 of 75 hard. And like my workouts, it's the same weight training I was doing. I just had more accountability for nutrition, and I walk my dog more. Right. And I'm down like 20 pounds in the first 50 days. It was purely nutrition though. Like nutrition and like sustainable walking. Like I'm not running marathons every single day. Cause like, I don't know, I hate cardio. I come from the powerlifting world. Like that's enough for me. And it is what it is, you know? So I love that answer. I want to be respectful of your time. One quick question, then we'll ask the wrap up question. I saw a clip, someone shared like an Instagram story of you, or you reposted it. You were talking about facial hair that made you stand out, right? And you've got an epic mustache going on. I'm curious the rationale behind it. And like, I think it was, you're referencing Dan Kennedy, maybe. Can you share that quote and like why?
I think the Dan Kennedy book, it was, I can't remember, but it was at that season of life when I was just reading all the stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think they said that a recognizable facial features make people more memorable. And so point one, and behind it was just that I was rich before my first mountain meetup, and I was really afraid that people weren't going to think I was legit or whatever. And so I had this big beard going to the event, and so like, you know, shave and not look like a scraggly mess. And so, you know, I went from that to mutton chops to Wolverine, you know, like the same guys do when we shave our beards. And then I had this porn star stash at the, like, as almost the last thing that I had left. And I like looked out the bathroom at Layla, my wife, and I was like, hey, and I just like, we both cracked up, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to keep it, because I just was like, I was so stressed out about this thing. I was like, I'll look at myself in the mirror tomorrow morning and I'll remember that, like, I will die, and a week later, no one will remember, and everyone will move on, and none of this matters. And so it was just a gentle reminder for me that it's just a game. And so that was the original story. And then what ended up happening after that is what kind of cemented it, is that of the 28 guys, I think they did get, you know, excessive value. And so like half of them had a stash the next week. Community. And then it became a thing. Right. Until that point, I just had crazy facial hair all the time, just because I couldn't afford and shave stuff. But after that, the stash became a thing, and then that was it. And you know, it's funny because if you just say like, oh yeah, you know that, have you seen that guy, the white dude who owns stuff? No, I don't know him. Like, you know the jack guy with the mustache? Yeah, I know that guy. Right? It's just like an easier way for people to be like, hey, I know what you're talking about. It's just people recall things easier because it's different than the norm.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's interesting, especially when you're having like sales conversations. People always talk about facial hair as like not being conducive to sales. So yeah, I don't think I've never heard anyone in our generation, like millennial or younger, talk about that, but I think it's different. So it's really cool to see you kind of breaking that norm, and it's cool to hear the rationale behind it. All right, before I ask you the last question, where do you hang out most on social? Where can people grab the book, check out everything that you got going on? Plug away.
The 100 offers is on Amazon, or you can, my name will come up. My YouTube is Alex Hormozi. You can just Google my name and it'll probably come up. My podcast is called The Game, which if you search my name, Alex Hormozi, it'll probably come up. And then if you like the Gram, I'm on the Gram TikTok. And if you search my name, I'll probably come up.
Awesome. I
do have a bunch of people who try and copy and do fake accounts, FYI. So try and find the one that looks legit.
Yeah. I'm dealing with that right now. It's a freaking pain in the ass. Apparently it doesn't violate Instagram's terms of service to fraudulently pretend to be someone and peddle crypto scams. But the internet cut out a little bit throughout that. So guys, all that will be linked down in the show notes. Get connected, show some love. Alex, last question I have for you. Going all the way back, building your chain of gyms, right? Deciding, okay, let's do the turnover business, doing that for 2 years, realizing we need to change. So all of our sales guys don't have to get divorced, right?
Yeah.
And then figuring out like the high ticket model, like selling until people started saying no, all the way to where you're at right now, where you're running a portfolio, 85 million this year, like absolutely crushing it, this entire window. What's been the biggest lesson that you've learned that has yielded the most results and had the biggest impact on your life and in your business?
Understanding proper sequence. Most people do things in the wrong order, or they do things that don't matter. I mean, like, we all have the same time. And so I think that most people work on stuff that doesn't matter. They spend all their time doing stuff that doesn't matter. And so like macro speed comes from prioritization, not from frenetic energy. Like if you saw my days, they're not that crazy. Like I really don't have much on my schedule, really ever. And so, but it's like, if we make the right macro decisions, we'll be rowing, Warren Buffett said this, and I just think it's an easy aphorism. It's much more important to be in the right boat than how hard you row. And so a lot of people row really hard and they row direction, or they row the wrong boat. And it's much easier to be as successful as people want by just being in the right boat. And so picking the opportunity vehicles that you want, that you think that have the most, ability to scale, provide value to the marketplace. But the speed for us came from just knowing what the constraint was and then ruthlessly attacking that and not really doing anything else. And to reinforce the point, I didn't send emails until we crossed 50 million. Because I just always thought there was more important stuff than that. We did at one point, once we start, once the base was so big, we had so many customers, I was like, okay, now it makes sense. We should start doing that.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't the biggest priority. And so I think people just don't know how to prioritize.
Love it. Alex, thanks for joining me, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
100%.